Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I've always known that my husband, Joshua, wouldn't be earning more than me from the get go because of the course he took up in college, which is where we met. I had absolutely no problem with that because to me, all that mattered was he contributed something to the relationship. And initially he did, at least until we were dating and engaged. He brought the groceries and paid for some of the utilities, and that was more than enough for me. Then lockdown hit when we got married, and Joshua lost his job. Things got a bit difficult from there on because of me having to take up the chunk of money he contributed. But as I said, I earned way more than what Joshua earned. So I had no problem with taking over the finances till the time Joshua said he needed to look for jobs. Well, needless to say, that day never came. And until the lockdown restrictions eased at the start of the year, I really believed him because I knew people who worked in this field and struggled to find employment all throughout the lockdown. These were the same people who acted as guides to me, though, because none of them ever struggled as much as Joshua did. I mean, yeah, throughout the global situation, they did have to find alternative employment, but about a year after, everyone was back on track. That wasn't so much the case for Joshua because he went on giving me one reason or the other as to why he didn't get a job. Me being comfortable financially and the pressure his family would put on me to focus on his mental health just ended up me dragging the support I extended towards him for 2 years. I only sort of began understanding what was happening once the lockdown restrictions eased. We started arguing a lot, and Joshua still refused to get a job. Our relationship began going downhill in general, and everyone would blame me for it because apparently I was in the wrong for not being a supportive and caring wife. This entire year was spent in a back and forth between all of us. I began spending more time living at home alone or with friends, while Joshua lived with his parents or friends. It was a horrible situation overall, but I still had a sense of hope in me. A sense that things will get better. Hope that Joshua will get better, but the reality was that my relationship was crashing down faster than ever, and it was going to break into a million pieces very soon. And it did. It was on the day my sister in law invited us over for dinner for her pregnancy announcement. I like my sister in law. I mean, I'm not sure if she feels the same way about me as the rest of Joshua's family, but she's not as annoying as the rest of his family. So I decided it'd be nice to go and give her my good wishes. I expected to have a good time with the family, and initially I did, but that too faded away as we sat down to have dinner. It began with my mother in law's snide remarks. I was used to them, so I just ignored them for the most part. The part that got me the most was when my very drunk husband began joining her in and poking fun at me. Initially, it was just stupid things that I could brush off, but as time went on, it became so obvious that it wasn't a joke. And Joshua just wanted to show everyone how imperfect I was. The final straw was when he joked about how the only thing I was good at and worth it to keep around was the fact that I had a six-figure job. And that let him stay unemployed and allowed him to quit his job. Yes, he fully confessed that he quit his job and wasn't fired. I stayed quiet the entire dinner as everyone laughed their hearts out. This was because I knew I was going to be the one laughing very soon. The day we returned home after that dinner, Joshua fell asleep on the bed as if he had absolutely nothing to worry about. I, on the other hand, got working to find packers and movers and call them over the very same weekend when Joshua left the house to spend time with his mommy dear. to ship his things over to her place. Panic immediately ensued as Joshua began calling my phone over and over to ask me what all this was about. That day, I laughed at him the exact way he had laughed at me at the dinner table. I guess he realized what all of this was about and immediately started calling me petty and telling me how I should get over my ego because he had already found a job and was only making those comments that day because he wanted to surprise me with his new job. I was not buying it. I told him to just leave me alone and keep having a good time with his mommy dear until I serve him with the divorce papers. Joshua did not like hearing this, so he drove home and tried to get inside the house, telling me that we needed to talk. That is when I threatened the cops on him, which helped because he left grumbling about how terrible of a partner I was. Then, of course, the messages started flooding in. I shut off my phone immediately and went over to my sister's place to stay, who was on my side, obviously, but says what I did was a little overboard. Now, I was so sure and confident in my decision, but all these conflicting remarks about them are making me feel just a little shaky. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. AITA? I am so fed up with everyone blaming whatever that's been happening on me. I don't understand what, why, how am I even wrong in a situation where it's Joshua who's refusing to work and act like an adult. My in-laws try to visit me and try to talk to me absolutely every day. I have to keep threatening them with cops to try to keep them away from my house. I guess they realize just how bad it's been with Joshua and want me to get back with him. I'm glad they're getting a taste of their own medicine. I hope they're now realizing just how irritating it is to deal with an adult sitting on their butt all day and not doing anything to contribute to the household. Sometimes I wonder if I was just completely blind to even choose a man like him as a partner. Well, I guess I'll just never know that because it's too late to undo the decision of even marrying him. Now, I'm just working on running away as far as I possibly can from him. I've looked for a divorce lawyer who has started to draft the divorce papers. Hopefully, I can serve him the papers soon and put this all behind me like a nightmare. I met Joshua at a local cafe today because I wanted to talk to him one last time and serve him the divorce papers. I made it clear to him from the get-go that the only reason that I wanted to meet him was to say goodbye, return him some of his last belongings, and hand him the divorce papers. Of course, though, Joshua, being the way he is, brought his sister and mom along with him to try to get them to convince me to take him back. That was the moment I truly realized how childish Joshua had become because sitting there made me feel like I had a fight with a kid from my grade school, and he got his mom to stand up for him. I mean, it looked good during grade school, but this time I was just weirded out. I completely erased whatever nice I wanted to say to him. Just handed him the papers and started to leave. That is when my ex-mother-in-law started to create a ruckus. She began screaming at me to come back. I didn't budge. The scene was becoming so bad that security kicked them all out. I and my ex-sister-in-law practically had second-hand embarrassment from what my ex-mother-in-law did. We ended up going our separate ways from there. It was an eerie feeling to know that this was the last time I'd be seeing these people, but it felt good overall. I'm currently home writing this update. I'll be updating this post next after a while because I'm going to be taking a break off of social media. Thank you all for the support you guys gave so far. Hello, guys. I hope you're all doing well. I logged onto this account today and saw all the heartwarming messages you guys left me, so decided to update you guys about what's been happening. Well, I ended up moving cities altogether. I realized that divorcing Joshua wasn't enough for some reason. I wanted more. I wanted to leave all the traces I ever had of Joshua in my life, and thankfully, my company helped me tremendously with that. Joshua, on the other hand, has been couch hopping from one friend's place to the other and has finally started to look for a job because his parents refused to let him live in their house longer than a month. I found out about all of this from my ex sister in law, who was so kind and gracious to message me after she found out I was leaving the city. I guess, after all, I was right about her being the only sensible one in the household. I honestly don't care about what happens to Joshua or his family at this point, but I sort of feel glad that at least he's trying to stand back on his feet. Makes me wonder how much heartbreak could have been saved only if he did what he is now. Well, nothing can be done about it anymore. We're on our separate ways now. I can only hope that the both of us end up having a good life. Thank you. NTA. Joshua has lost his self respect and wanted to live the unemployed life when he realized just how much you were ready to do for him. His family, too, saw that and wanted their son to be a man child, fully taken care of by the first woman readily available to do so. It's astounding at the audacity these people have, really. So happy that you ended up removing yourself from the situation. Now, the family can take care of the man child they raised. NTA. Seems like the sister in law was the only one with brain cells in the entire family. Just wished that she stood up for OP the day of the dinner when everyone was passing comments towards her. Well, now I just hope they don't send Joshua over to her place to leech off of her. NTA. If the parents cared so much about Joshua's mental well being and wanted him to find the best in his field, why didn't they let him live in their house longer than a month? Of course, all because they wanted OP to be the maid with the built in bank for their son. So glad you left that toxic situation. Now, please get yourself a good therapist and get the help you truly deserve so that you don't allow anyone to walk all over you again. I'm 29, female. My half sister is 41, female. Amy is simply not a good person. She has been an addict for as long as I can remember, albeit with reoccurring small breaks of sobriety. I have been naive enough to defend her sobriety and encourage others to trust her many, many times, and have gotten burned each time when she inevitably relapses and screws someone over. Apart from her addiction, she is also a thief who has stolen from me and my brother many times, even my birthday money, as a preteen when she was an adult. A few other facts about Amy to give a glimpse into her character. Amy once used checks from our dead stepfather to buy Christmas gifts for her kids. She then returned the gifts for money to bail her boyfriend out of jail. My mother was sick once, and Amy gave her some pain reliever. My mother doesn't always make the best decisions either, which knocked my mom out for 2 days straight. At that time, Amy stole all her checks, her social security card, the deed to the house, and the titles to the cars, and took out a life insurance policy on my mom with herself as the sole beneficiary. When our brother got his first job at 15, she stole a check and drained his $500 bank account. He was saving up for a car. If Amy ever finds out I give my niece or nephew money for a gift, she conveniently forgets her wallet at a store or finds some other way to borrow the money. They don't get it back. Amy has 2 kids, which I have tried to protect over the course of their lives, while their mother was in jail, rehab, homeless shelters, to the point of spending my chore money buying them clothes and toys for Christmas. She has been a horrible mother to them, and they have spent most of their lives living with my mother, but my niece still loves her mom. I will admit that Amy didn't have the best childhood, but I believe at some point that has to stop being an excuse. Parts of my childhood were rough too, but I turned out okay. Amy is currently in a sobriety period. I do truly believe that addicts can change, and I hope she stays sober for her kids' sake. But the pain she's brought on my family has me full on no contact with her. I have a 3-year old and am currently pregnant, and I honestly never want my children to really know Amy. I have caved and agreed to go to holidays at my mother's house for her sake. She refuses to not invite Amy, but that's my limit. I don't associate with her while we're there. My mom wanted to take my niece, my daughter, and I out to brunch for our birthdays this weekend, and I gladly accepted. Again, I love my niece. The problem is, my niece mentioned it to Amy, and she invited herself along. My mom refused to say no to her and can't understand why I can't just suffer through one meal without making a big deal about it. AITA? Wait, so it's your birthday and Amy just invited herself to it? NTAOP. You don't have to have someone there you don't want. End of story. It's your birthday. It's your guest list. Amy also sounds especially toxic, and the amount of theft and emotional turmoil she's put your family through is definitely a good enough reason not to want her there. I would point out to your mother that this is a woman who drugged her for 2 days while committing identity fraud with her social security number. Just because she's quick to forget that doesn't mean you have to be. I really hope that Amy doesn't end up at your birthday brunch, but honestly, it might be worth doing something separate with family when you're sure that Amy won't be there. NTA, you need to stop letting your mom hold you hostage to Amy. That's her daughter, and she won't give up on her. Good for her. But she has made your life hell. I would tell mom that you can't control what she wants to do, but she can't involve you in those decisions. Lunch is off if Amy is involved. My father was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal lung cancer, and my mother had Alzheimer's disease. I'm an only child living on the West Coast, while my parents resided in the Southeast. I oscillated every other month between our home and theirs for 3 years before my dad passed, and then my mother 15 months later. Now, my mother in law and I have always had a great relationship. However, it changed when I became the caregiver of both my parents. I have been married to her son for 26 years and was the unofficial person for her. Her kids, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and husband, were content with this arrangement since they didn't have to deal with her and her drama. When I found out about my parents' diagnosis, I was upfront with all parties that I would no longer be her person. I needed to focus my attention on my own parents. That's when mother-in-law passive-aggressive tendencies started to show. She didn't offer to help with my husband and son during the months I was away, yet was available to sister-in-law, brother-in-law. She no longer communicated with me and essentially ghosted me. By extension, she started to ignore her grandson as well, yet continued to communicate with her son, husband. No condolences were offered when my father passed, nor when my mother passed as well. She claimed she sent cards, text messages, and phone calls. However, none was sent to me or my son, just only my husband. The last straw was when she walked past my son with no words or acknowledgement in the driveway at his uncle's house. When confronted with her actions, she feels we are exaggerating and accused of making her feel bad. I have tried on numerous occasions talking with her about how hurt I feel. In the end, no resolution, and I walk away feeling like the bad guy for upsetting her. My son, 19, no longer wants anything to do with her since he is old enough to decide on his own. He no longer wishes to participate in family events if his grandmother is in attendance. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are wanting this friction to just go away and for things to be back to normal. Husband is in a rock and a hard place, still communicating with his mother, which I encourage. However, I am at a place in life where I no longer choose to be around negative, toxic people. For the sake of keeping my husband's family harmonious, should I just let it go? NTA, first, my condolences over the loss of your parents. Next, I say stand your ground. I find that people often want toxic events to be swallowed and dealt with silently to keep the peace and preserve normalcy. But at what cost? So others can feel comfortable? It's not like this is a new relationship, but rather 26 years of you being the dutiful daughter in law. It must hurt finding out this was a one-way relationship. But you have done nothing wrong. Rock on to your son. Good luck. NTA. First of all, I'm so sorry you lost your parents, and essentially your entitled mother in law, too, and it seems like you genuinely cared and were there for her. You're giving your husband too much grace. His mother did not offer condolences to you or the son you share together, and is now ignoring you two? And he's not saying something? Not pointing it out or helping resolve it? What if the situation was reversed? What if your father in law died and you and your son only said sorry to your husband, but not mother in law or anyone else? Then ignored them. I am sure your mother in law, in laws, and husband would throw a fit and be hurt. This is not just passive aggressive, it's cruel. If she doesn't want a relationship, then fine, but be adult enough to say it. Treating you like crap at your most vulnerable and sad state when you've been there for her for 26 years is not something to mitigate. You have a mother in law and husband problem. You're justified in cutting off contact. NTA, people like her that make their love conditional like that aren't worth it at all. Glad you and your son are prioritizing yourselves over this woman. She sounds really difficult for no good reason. I just wish your husband stood up for her mistreatment towards you and your son.